My husband kept photos of his now dead ex-wife, so I destroyed them. So I've been with my fiancé Ale for 2 years, but I've known him since I was a freshman in high school and he was a sophomore. He was with his deceased ex-wife Lorraine when they were in middle school. I always kinda had feelings for Ale, even when I was in a relationship with my ex-boyfriend from high school. We broke up, of course. But Ale has 2 kids, Basil who's 8 and Bertie who's 3. I love those kids as my own and see them as my own. He was married to his deceased ex-wife Lorraine when she was 18 and he was 19. Had a son after they got married. Sadly, Lorraine passed away from childbirth with their daughter Bertie. I comforted him when he was grieving. After a year of her passing, we got into a relationship. He's the best partner I can ever ask for and we are getting married in the summer of July. Bertie sees me as her mother and Basil sees me more as an aunt than a mom. I was always Annie Coco, but my name is Celia. Basil does have a picture of Ale and him and Lorraine when she was 5 months pregnant with Bertie. He does not have a picture of us together as a family. He still misses his mom. I was kinda a little jealous of Lorraine. Especially during high school. Sometimes I wish I was the birth mother of Basil and Bertie. I wished I had his kids first, and Ale doesn't want any more kids biologically. Because he told me he only wanted Lorraine to have his kids. He had a vasectomy. He told me he would rather just adopt or use a sperm donor, which makes me upset. I felt so insecure about all of it. Thinking Lorraine is in the way. All of Ale's friends knew Lorraine in and out. Since they all knew each other in middle school and had the same old friend group growing up all together. Especially Ale's best friend Jordan. He adored Lorraine. So did his wife Ruth, who is Lorraine's best friend. I know them, but I am not close to them. They all talk about Lorraine from time to time. About the things they used to do. They are the godparents of Basil and Bertie. So they're around a lot. I however didn't know Lorraine that much, but she was nice to me. It felt fake though. So I wasn't really a big fan of hers. But respected her enough. I felt kinda like I was intruding in Ale's beautiful family. I remember going through the attic and finding some of Lorraine's and Ale's belongings. With photos from middle school to before her passing. Also with Ale's old gifts that Lorraine gave him to Lorraine's gifts from Ale have given her. A lot of horses, as Lorraine grew up on a horse ranch and loved horses. Ale was keeping this for his kids to give when they were older. To treasure their mother's stuff. I also found another box filled with Lorraine's collection of old vintage and antique stuff of horses and gifts from her friends, Ale's friends, and family, and Ale's family. I got jealous as Ale was planning on giving this stuff of Lorraine's horse collection and gifts to Bertie. Ale has already given Bertie Lorraine's old stuffed zebra when she was a young child and given Basil an old knife that belonged to Lorraine's grandfather. All I know is, I wanted everything gone. When Ale took Basil and Bertie to Lorraine's parents' house for a few days. I stayed back because of work. I knew this was an opportunity to get rid of Lorraine's stuff and photos. So I took the knife and the stuffed zebra, all the photos of Lorraine in it and her antique horse collection. Burned all the photos, threw her antique collection away and destroyed some. Cut open all the stuffed toys of Lorraine's and letters she wrote. Destroyed every single thing of hers. I felt satisfied knowing she won't be a bother and nothing to be jealous of anymore. I felt happy and not remorseful. When Ale and the kids came back, I pretended as nothing happened and was just normal. It only took a few days when they noticed. Especially Basil, he couldn't find his photo of him and his mother or the knife. He raised awareness of the disappearance of the stuff, which got Ale searching for the zebra. But couldn't have been found. We moved to a new house a few months after. Ale searched through the attic to pack stuff and noticed that only Lorraine's stuff was all gone. Her collection, childhood stuff, their pictures together, letters, gifts. Just everything. He searched frantically for it. He did question me as he knew about my insecurities and jealousy of Lorraine. But I told him that I would never do anything like that. He believed me. Thinking he left her stuff back at the old house. Even to this day he still doesn't know. Basil is, however, heartbroken, which made me feel a bit sad. Lorraine's parents and friends are very sad about it. As Ale did tell his friends and everyone. His family is sad about it. Because they love Lorraine like a daughter. I wish they loved me like one. But I know I can't ever compare to her. Ale's friends are also so sad about what happened. Everyone is sad. But they don't know a thing. Even Bertie is sad about the zebra. But that thing was old and gross. So I got her a new one. She doesn't love it like her old one, but she sleeps with it once in a while. I don't think I can ever tell Ale or anyone this. But it feels good to take it off my chest. Only people I really told were my 2 best friends Mandy and Holly. Mandy knows Ale, but in high school they really weren't that close. But still hung out, and Holly didn't really like Ale that much. She only knew him because she dated his friend Maxwell in high school to college on and off. Until Maxwell got married with a kid on the way. However, Mandy and Holly have told me what I did wasn't right. But they won't tell anyone. So I feel safe knowing they won't tell Ale or any one of his friends and family. But I didn't expect what happened next. My husband kept photos of his now dead ex-wife, so I destroyed them. You guys are right, the guilt hit me so hard. Seeing my kids. All sad and devastated. Basil was so distraught about his grandfather's dagger and his picture with his mom. He sometimes will break down crying because he always tell his dad and my mom is the prettiest lady. Or mom was the kindest lady. Bertie was still sad because she thought she lost or misplaced Zipper, her mother's childhood stuffed zebra. She sometimes couldn't sleep without Zipper. She would still come to sleep on me. As she sees me as her mom. Ale was upset thinking he left all of his memories of him and Lorraine behind and could never get them back. He's sad Bertie would never know much about her mother Lorraine or didn't have any pictures of her mother. Or give her collection on antique horses. We'll never know the letters she wrote for Bertie and Basil. And for Basil to never receive any of his mother's old gifts. Basil really loved his mom and he did resent me sometimes. Saying I'm not his mother or I will never replace her. He does say he loves me, of course. Just not as a mom. I tried to be a mom for him, but that made him really resent me. I just feel really awful now. But I still didn't tell them for a while. However, my best friend Mandy was the one that wanted me to tell Ale for the sake of him and the kids. She grew up with a stepmother who was resentful of her. She didn't want me to go down that path. She said that it's up to Ale on what he wants to do with our relationship and that I really messed up and dig myself a really dark deep hole. She says if I love Ale and the kids as I say I do, then I need to tell him or she would. I never told him, I was too scared, so after weeks of not telling, Mandy came over one day when I was visiting my parents and little sister. Told Ale the whole thing, what I did and everything I destroyed. How I talked so badly about Lorraine. When I came home, Mandy was there and I looked over to Ale and was fuming with so much anger. I had never seen him like this before. We never had an argument before over the course of our relationship and friendship. This was the first. He screamed and yelled at me, how dare you do that to the love of my life and the mother of my children. I knew he wasn't over her and thought he loved me. I asked him if he ever did love me. He said I did and I wanted to marry you. Until you ruin mine and my kids' life forever, I don't anymore. We will never get those stuff back. I started crying so hard and asked Mandy why over and over. She didn't say anything. Ale was going off on me and broke up with me and told me to never get near me or his kids ever again. I told him, what about Bertie? She calls me mama. And he said you were never her mother, just a sick person who wanted to seem like Lorraine never existed. And told me to get the hell out of his and his kids' life. After that I left and went to stay at my best friend Holly's place. Then what I learned the few days after. Ale told everyone, his friends, his family, his best friend Jordan, Lorraine's family and friends and her best friend Ruth. I was getting messages left and right from all of them. Telling me awful things. Calling me names. Ruth texted me calling me a soulless crone who took her best friend's memories and life from her kids. That one really stung and got me to break down. Mandy even told me she will never look at me the same and question our friendship and hasn't contacted me since. A lot of our other friends dropped me. But a few are still with me. So now here I am. At my best friend's place until I get back on my feet. With an ex-fiancé who wants to put a row on me. I am harassing his family. And already caused enough life-damaging pain for his kids. His son Basil hates me. Because Ale told him. Bertie now wondering where I'm probably. I don't know, his family hates me. I got along with his two older brothers and his parents. All his friends hate me and most of my friends do too. I lost my fiancé and my kids. Over my stupid jealousy. Hack my Instagram account? I will ban and expose you. It's July 1st, 2022. Every year, my family travels up to Adirondack State Park for the July 4th holiday. As always, it's absolute chaos. My mom was packing a cooler in the garage, my dad was running around shirtless, and my sister was helping us pack by texting her friends. I was trying my best, but at that point I was getting tired and going just a little crazy. Somewhere in the chaos, my phone went off. A friend, who we'll call Liv, had messaged me on Instagram. She'd lost her account password and needed help recovering it. Why, if I just clicked on this link and sent her whatever information it spat out, she could get back in. Oh, and they were still in Instagram because they were still logged in on an old phone, just don't question it, smile. Perhaps the chance to help a friend was simply too alluring. Perhaps the heat and the insanity of travel had taken its toll. Perhaps I'm just an idiot. Whatever the case, I did the unthinkable, I clicked the link they sent. The worst part of it all is that I was this close to realizing that it was all a scam. Before clicking on totalanototrojan.com, I messaged Liv on Discord asking, hey, do you need help with her Instagram? Did I wait for a response from Discord? No, of course not. So, in mere seconds, I was kicked out of my Instagram account, and almost lost my WhatsApp too. Whoops. By the time I realized I'd been duped, by the time the real Liv messaged me back saying that her account had been hacked, it was already far too late. My account had a new password, and there was nothing I could do about it. Or was it? Sitting in the car, ranting via text to my best friend, a realization hit me. Zuckerberg, as part of his whole Meta imitative, had rolled out the Meta Account Center. I had, absent-mindedly, connected my Facebook account. As someone with family members above the age of 50, I was legally required to have one, to my Instagram account. From the account center, you could do many things, sync up your posts, make a fancy friends list, and some other stuff. Most importantly, however, you could change the username and profile pictures on your individual accounts. Sitting in the car, stuck on a 6-hour car ride, a plan slowly came to me. Now, while I was plotting my revenge, the hacker was making some changes. No longer was the account username Faded Railfans, it was now Oddly Hacker 190. No longer was the profile picture an image of me, gracefully leaning against a tree. It was now their face, zoomed in at a weird angle, wearing a smug smile. No longer was the account full of posts of me going about my daily life, with one exception, my birthday celebration post. Professionals have standards, I suppose, but of her, at the mall, buying fancy shoes. She started following thousands of other accounts, and even had the nerve to follow my new account and message me, asking for $200 to get the account back. The second I received the message, I knew I had to go through with the plan. You dare message me, gloating, demanding for money? Oh, I don't think so. Logging into Facebook, I was delighted to see my old account still part of the Meta Account Center. The counter-hacking began. First, a little test. Opening the account center, I changed the profile picture to a giant red X. The message was simple enough: danger, stay away. Switching over to Instagram, I scrambled to see if it worked. To my utter glee, it worked perfectly. Her smug grin was gone. Showtime. Using the unlimited power of Google, I found a lovely new profile picture for our hacker friend, an advertisement for a lady's private modeling page, with all the boob and butt you could want. A few clicks later, and voila, the account had a new profile picture. If the hack was going to act like a cunt, her profile picture really ought to be one, right? Next up, her username. As a very gay, and very not neurotypical individual, I was more than happy to finally put the slurs I've had hurled at me to good use. A few clicks later, and the account had a new username that was far more fitting. Within an hour, Zuckerberg came crashing down with his banned hammer. This account has been suspected for violating TOS. The best part? Despite the banned account still being linked to my Facebook and new Instagram account, it was the only one removed. I broke up with my boyfriend on his birthday for horrible actions he did when he was a teenager. I don't know whether this count as a pro-revenge, but here is my story, which happened some years ago. I, 26F at the time, had just started dating Thomas, 28M, and things seemed promising. Very sweet man, educated and quite smart, good looks. After 7 weeks of dating, he invited me and 2 of his childhood friends, let's call them Alex and Bart, for a long 29th birthday celebration weekend at his father's country house in a small French town. His father was going to be around as well, and I was very excited to meet everyone. Day 1, Friday, is fun. I am happy to get along well with Thomas' father, a smart and caring man. Day 2, Saturday, after a very nice day, we enjoy a party in the garden with the neighbors, including some friends of Thomas. After a few hours and lots of drinks, a group of people gather around a small campfire and start sharing childhood memories. This is where things go wrong. At first, of course, innocent and dumb stories as you would expect, but then, Thomas and his friends started sharing really sick stuff. In particular, they told a story about how, when they were 14 or 15 years old, they found very amusing to bully for almost 6 months Arthur, a boy of their school who was very isolated and shy. Making jokes, calling names, you name it. As if this was not enough, they created a fake girl profile on MSN Messenger, a computer platform to exchange live messages that we used in years 2000s, and spent effing months, exchanging messages with him under the false girl identity, flirting and developing a false relationship with the poor boy. Some people were in the confidence at school and it became a big and cruel joke behind Arthur's back. They used pictures of Bart's real cousin and the boy truly thought he had some kind of online girlfriend to whom he even sent confessions and love messages. At some point they got bored and scheduled a false rendezvous IRL, asking the boy to take a bus for 2 or 3 hours, wearing a t-shirt Elmer the Elephant, based on a private joke. Obviously there was no one waiting for him and they did not know how long he waited over there, by himself. If Arthur had not already understood what was going on, he found out the next day at school after Thomas and Bart told the story to everyone and even shared the love messages that Arthur had been writing. The poor boy stopped coming to class and apparently changed school, and it is easy to imagine that this must have been extremely traumatizing to him. Do you think that Thomas, Alex and Bart had any bit of shame about it? Not a bit of remorse, in particular on Thomas and Bart's side. They kept making jokes about it and even seemed to regret that they were not good enough at being evil to convince the boy to send nudes or sexy pics. I don't even want to imagine what would have happened if he had done so. To say that I felt uncomfortable would be a gross understatement. I was absolutely horrified and started to despise Thomas more than anything. I was not the only one shocked. Thomas' father, who heard the end of the story, had the most disappointed look in the eyes. His stupid son was so drunk that he did not even notice it. I escaped the party immediately after that and got back to the house. I could not sleep at all this night and I kept thinking about the evening and how Thomas was still finding this funny. I heard him coming to bed around 4 a.m. but I pretended I was asleep. Day 3, Sunday, was the actual birthday, and the initial plan was that I would take Thomas on a one-to-one fancy surprise date for lunch nearby and then we would meet the group for a late afternoon party. But instead, I woke up very early on Sunday morning, took all my stuff in silence and went alone to the train station where I took a direct train heading back to Paris. I decided to send a text to Thomas wishing him happy birthday and telling him to meet me at a certain location 1 hour from the house for a surprise and that I needed to go a little bit in advance to make sure that everything would be perfect. I had picked the location randomly, using Google Maps, to gain time. Thomas read the text around 10 a.m., when he woke up. He responded with excitement that he would follow religiously the instructions. When he arrived there at 12:30, I told him to wait further as there was little delay on something. Then I asked him to meet me at a restaurant which was 30 minutes drive from the initial location. When he arrived at 13:15, I texted him that I was on my way, would arrive in 20 minutes and that he will understand when he sees me why I made him wait. I also asked him to order some food and the most expensive bottle on the menu. Around 13:30 he started calling me several times and sent a lot of worried texts, and after 45 minutes I responded, in French, "So, how does it feel to have people play with your feelings?" Then I stopped responding. I let him call and text the entire afternoon, but never responded. At some point an unknown number called me. It was his friend Alex asking what was going on and that Thomas' birthday was completely ruined because of what I did. I just responded, "This is an extremely small payback for what you did to Arthur. Tell Thomas to stop calling me." And hung up. I blocked them. I still felt bad the entire evening as I had started to grow attached to Thomas back then. The following days, a common friend called me to say that my reaction was completely absurd and unfair, that it was not my role to punish someone for actions they did as a teenager, that they were adult ways of saying things and that I had been completely crazy. Only a few people supported what I did, everyone else seemed to think that I was a bitch. Thomas tried to fix things and win me back for a few months afterwards. I never responded to any of his messages. I don't regret it. I simply hope that Arthur, who should be 35 or 36 years old now, is well. What is the most disturbing thing you have ever discovered? 8 months ago I won $2 million on a lotto ticket. I gave my parents $200,000 each and kept the rest for myself. I started to browse the internet for houses that matched my liking. I found one and moved in. Everything was perfect. Some time passed again. My parents just left after visiting once again. It was about 6 p.m. I decided to head out for some dinner. I came home and started to get ready for bed. I laid in bed and fell asleep. I was awoken by what sounded like a scream outside my window. My eyes shot open. I watched the curtains move in the breeze as I listened to it echo in the night silence. It scared the crap out of me. My heart was in my throat. I started to calm down when I remembered that foxes made similar noises. Effing fox, I murmured to myself. I started to drift off when it happened again. This time it sounded closer than the other. I sighed and got up out of bed. I was still a little on edge, but I pushed through the fear. I peered out the window towards the tall trees. I peered around but to no avail. I looked at the hardwood floor for a second, then looked back up. Behind a tree around 100 feet away I saw something move. I gasped and then closed the window. I ran back to bed and hid under the covers. The reason for my panic was a story my grandpa told me when I was 14. He told me about a creature called a skinwalker. He described it as a large humanoid creature with dark skin and no hair. It can disguise itself as an animal or human and make sounds like a scream or mimic the voice of a loved one or friend to drag you in. The only way it could be stopped was to shoot it with a silver bullet. This idea was running through my mind. I stayed under the covers for about 10 minutes. There have been no screams since then. Over time I started to calm down. I had to use the bathroom, so I got up and walked towards the door. I stopped moving for a second to itch my ankle when I heard a whimper outside. I froze. It sounded like a dog or some other small animal. In my mind, I thought, stop being a wuss. It's probably just a dog or something. Skinwalkers aren't even real, you idiot. I snapped out of my haze and continued to the bathroom. I finished in there and walked out. Before returning to bed I peered towards my front door. Something was blocking the window. There is a porch light, so I could tell something was there. I thought that maybe it was a desk I ordered that might have shown up sometime after I went to sleep. I watched the mass for about 5 seconds when my heart dropped. I watched as the mass slowly shrank below the window of the door. I started to hear the whimper again, this time muffled by the front door. I laid my back behind the wall by the stairs and pulled out my phone. I started to dial the number of one of my neighbors, Paul. I called Paul because he is a professional hunter. He has a lot of weapons, so he was the best choice. He didn't pick up the first 2 calls but picked up the third. In a groggy, annoyed voice he said, "What? I need help. There is something at my door whimpering," I said, my voice trembling. "Like what?" This time he sounded more interested. I'm not sure. I think of some sort of animal," I said. "Hold on." I heard the phone scuffle around a bit, then he spoke again. "Looks like a small dog," he said. His bedroom window had a perfect view of my front door. "Please don't think I'm crazy, but I swear I saw it shrink," I said, feeling like an idiot. Dead silence. "Hello?" I asked. "Did you say shrink?" Yeah, why?" He paused for a moment and started up again. "Here's what I want you to do. Stay where you are. Try not to make any noise. If anything changes you need to tell me, okay? I'm gonna grab my rifle," he said confidently. "Okay," I whispered. About 2 minutes passed. I could hear Paul moving and doing stuff in his house. Finally, he came back on. "All right, I'm gonna open the window," he said. I peered around the corner and looked out the transom window. I could see his window slide open. I heard him rack his rifle. "All right," he said. I waited about 3 seconds until Paul spoke up again. I don't see anything there." As he said this I realized that the whimpering had ceased. "I can't hear the whimper anymore," I said. "That's not good. Listen, I need you to make a decision. Either make a run for my house or I make a run to you." He exclaimed. "Well, you have the firearm, so could you come here?" I said. He sighed. "All right. I'm coming." He hung up the phone. About 8 seconds later I heard his front door opening from my bedroom window. It took around a minute, but finally, I heard a knock on the door. Relief washed over me. I started to walk down the stairs. About halfway down Paul shouted out to me, "It's safe to come to the door. Hurry." I sped up and started to unlock the door when I remembered what my grandpa said. It can make sounds like a scream or mimic the voice of a loved one or friend to drag you in. I stopped in my tracks and started to back up from the door. I headed back up the stairs and decided to peer out my bedroom window. There in the street was Paul, not moving. I turned white as a ghost. The person at the door wasn't Paul. It was the creature. I didn't know what to do next, but I came up with a plan. I was going to distract the creature by throwing something behind my house. When I knew it was there, I was going to run out the front door into the street and grab Paul's firearm. When the creature comes back around, I will end it. If Paul knew what it was, he must have had silver bullets loaded. I grabbed a vase from the hallway and headed toward the bathroom again. I slowly started to open the window. I made sure the coast was clear and dropped the vase onto the ground. I heard the creature scurry away from the front deck. I quickly ran towards the front door. I unlocked it and swung it open. I made a break for Paul, who was now lifeless. I shouted at the creature, asking it to show itself. The road fell silent. After about 10 seconds I saw it galloping out from the side of my house on all fours. I raised the firearm and unloaded, closing my eyes. My eyes peeled open. The creature was in a fetal position on the ground, back onto me. This thing must have been 10 feet tall. It was huge. I racked the firearm and started to approach. Slowly but surely I crept my way up towards it. I was about 6 feet away. I raised the firearm again. The thing jumped up and ran away into the woods, whimpering the whole way. Finally, this thing was over. I pulled out my phone and called 911. I explained what happened, not expecting them to believe me. At this point, a few neighbors down the road were woken up by the shots and came to see what happened. The police arrived in about 15 minutes. Soon after that, black vans with tinted windows rolled up. Government. I knew right away why they were there. I was questioned all night. I wasn't allowed to stay in my house for about a month. I didn't want to stay either. The government offered to buy the house after I expressed my urge to leave. What's the most humiliating reason you've ever heard for a teenager to be expelled from school for? Not expelled, but suspended. Stupid boy mucking around in art class. Teacher has had enough of it and sends him to sit in the art cabinet on his own for 10 minutes. In most Australian schools, the art cabinet is a small walk-in cupboard with a sliding door. After 2 minutes the teacher feels mean for sending him in there, and goes in to check on him. He's got his pants down around his ankle and is having a wank. Continues to do it as the teacher is screaming and the whole class can see him through the now open sliding door. He is now well known around the area as the Phantom Puller. This boy is not mentally handicapped in any way, just a full-on idiot. His dad has been friends with my dad for a long time, and naturally he is one of those boys who has developed a long-time crush on me. We are now 22 and he still manages to find me whenever I return to my hometown with his piss-taking friends egging him on. When I was in high school, I think my sophomore year, there was a senior who was expelled and not allowed to attend graduation because of a tiny pocket knife keychain in his car. It was one of those little freebie ones. At the time I believe they came with a particular multi-pack of film, about 1.5 inches long, with a key ring, and containing only a single blade and a nail file, I think. It was barely usable as a letter opener. The guy had one, its ring connected to a bunch of other random keychains, in a pile on the dashboard of his car. The dean happened to be walking through the parking lot and saw it, figured out whose car it was, and he was expelled for having a knife at school. Same year, earlier on, someone was expelled for a short piece of scrap copper pipe found in his locker, a leftover from some kludge repair he'd done to his car. It was considered to be drug paraphernalia. Zero tolerance is horribly stupid. I got suspended for 3 days for this. When I was 14 or 15, we had an art project where we had to pick basically any recognizable person, celebrity, sports player, etc., to paint in a certain style. One of my good friends decided to pick Eminem, so when we were in the computer room that lunchtime, he was Google image searching for a good pick. He stumbled across a picture of 2 people doing it doggy style, except Eminem's face had been photoshopped onto the guy's body and Britney Spears onto the female's. This was hilarious to us teenage boys, so as a joke my friend pressed Ctrl+P, pretending he was going to print it, and changed the copies to 500. I leaned over and pressed enter. We scarpered out of there when we realized they had started printing and we couldn't stop it. At the end of lunch, a teacher roared my name from the other end of the corridor and I obviously immediately knew why. Got taken to the waiting room by the headmaster's office and my friend, who had been using the computer, was already sitting there. Went into the headmaster's office and we were both trying to stifle laughs as we saw the huge pile of paper on his desk. My friend explained fully why he was looking for pictures and that he had genuinely stumbled upon it by accident. The headmaster wouldn't believe him, as my friend had used someone else's account to use the internet. Due to his not working, IT continually doing nothing to fix it and someone figuring out that with some people's usernames you could put the password as password and it would still let you in. This meant our headmaster thought he had done it deliberately and was trying to get the other kid in trouble. Best part was, our posh, English headmaster saying, "Who is M&M?" And I leaned forward and pointed to the guy plowing Britney from behind and said, "He is." My friend burst out laughing and we were both given 3-day suspensions. My parents weren't impressed but it was worth it.